Well, school bells are ringing, and with lots of kids already in school, others about to start, it's always a good idea to keep tabs on rebates for electronics. Students and parents both could use those. Heads up on rebates, especially on laptops and other gear they're going to be using for their studies. And joining us is Howard Schwartz from Connecticut's Better Business Bureau. Nice to see you again, Howard. Thanks for coming in so early on a holiday Saturday for us. Now, I go to the store and I look at these electronics, and they've got a great price on there. You look closely, it says after rebate. And, you know, I guess that's what we're talking about here. Those can sometimes get a little tricky, right?
They can. In the best of worlds, the ones are that are the best are the ones when you go to the cashier, you give them a coupon, you get the money off the top.
Okay.
There are billions of dollars in rebates going around, but the statistics are quite interesting. Most people who do make decisions to buy an item might do so because of a rebate offer.
Sure.
But half of them don't bother to fill in the paperwork.
Really? Why is that?
Laziness, they figure, you know, it's delayed savings, or they may just forget. A lot of technicalities can be involved, but here's the sad part, is only 20% of people who actually file rebates get the rebate. And there's a variety of reasons for that, and that can be the third party that handles the rebates might say they didn't receive the paperwork.
Okay.
It may have been received too late, or they failed on some sort of a technicality, not including something that's required for the rebate. So, also a word about rebate cards, because sometimes rather than a mail-in rebate, the retailer may offer to give you a card that's sort of like a debit card.
Right.
Some people find them restrictive because you can only use them in that particular retailer's stores.
Okay, so instead of getting actual cash back, you just got to go back to that same store and buy more stuff. Yes. All right. It always interests me when I do those rebates. You got to read the thing so carefully. You know, it's got to be filled out using a unicorn's horn with rainbow ink and stuff like. They can get very complicated, right?
Actually, unicorn's horn is quite common. Truth of the matter is that there are fantastic savings, but yeah, there are a lot of hoops to jump through, and consumer advocates seem to feel that the process is deliberately made cumbersome so that people won't get a rebate. And Better Business Bureau hears a variety of complaints, and from businesses large and small. Just to give you an idea of the range: wireless providers, satellite and cable TV providers, retailers, electric stores, remodelers, car dealers, and even pharmacies. And the most common complaints that we hear, people who do jump through the hoops and make sure they got everything right will mail it in, and they won't hear anything back, they don't get the checks, and they can't confirm what has happened to it. So the important thing when you're complaining about something like this, I mean, if it finally gets to the point where you've got to come to BBB, people will generally seek a refund, because the whole premise of buying a particular item was that they would get money back.
Right. That's the price they were thinking about in their minds when they decided to buy the thing. We got some tips for people when they're doing these rebates, so walk us through some of these tips.
All right, well, tip number one, if you are cashing in on a rebate, make sure that you understand, as you said before, all of the conditions. And that means don't procrastinate, do it in a timely manner, make sure that you've got all of the paperwork that's necessary. And that usually requires things like an original copy of the receipt, the little UPC barcode on the side. You want to read the instructions carefully to understand the time frame. Do you need to send originals? Do you need anything else from the store? Make photocopies of all documentation. You don't want to take any chances in case it gets lost. Consider sending it by certified mail. You don't want to be told, we didn't receive it. That happens from time to time. Make a note on your calendar. I do that about a week or two before the rebate's supposed to come, and do that before the deadline. And if you see that there's a problem, it's not coming, you contact the store or the manufacturer, whoever the issuer is. You might want to visit their website, because a lot of them do have a section specifically devoted to rebates. And check your mail carefully, because what we hear is some people complain that they get what looks like junk mail and ends up being a rebate check. They toss it in the garbage, and then when it's time to come and get their check, they find there's nothing in the mail. So there are 3 words that we would recommend for people who want to use a rebate: persistence, persistence, and persistence.
Yep, and I got a rebate check recently, and it was just sort of, it was this perforated, just a piece of paper folded, had to very carefully separate it, very carefully tear things off, and then I went to put it in the ATM. The ATM actually wouldn't accept it, wouldn't recognize it as a check, so I then had to take it to the teller. That's not something for the BBB. It's just something for you folks at home to keep in mind. Now, if you're buying these things for the kids to take to school or what have you, maybe it's best to handle it yourself, these rebates, because it can get a little confusing for maybe a younger person filling all this out.
It can be even confusing for an adult, but very important. Make sure that, again, I can't emphasize this enough, make sure you understand all the terms and conditions. Now, it may not be such a great deal if it says, well, you get 2 for 1 at a lower price. Does your kid really need 2 of a large ticket item? But it can be very helpful when you're buying school supplies, and they're applied often to computers and computer equipment. Cell phones. Interesting. I had an old, I used to call it a cellophone because it was held together by tape. I decided to bite the bullet and actually got myself a smartphone.
All right. Howard, thank you very much for all those tips. You want to hear more about those? You can log on to our website at WTNH.com. Click on the Good Morning Connecticut Weekend section. Howard Schwartz, Connecticut Better Business Bureau, thanks for joining us this morning.